guys. So these are my favorite webinars, the ones that we do the tips and tricks. Everybody loves the tips and tricks. And I chose some topics that I thought were a lot of fun. And also, if I happen to show them in my Excel classes, the participants tell me, oh, I love that. So yeah, I chose a handful of topics like now when you insert images into Excel, they're not, well, you can still choose to do them as floating on the screen and drag them around, but you can actually insert images directly into the cells. And if you can insert images into the cells, you can use them like data. And I'm going to show you how to insert them into the cells. And then I can, for example, create a pivot table and use the images inside my pivot table. So images, pivot tables, then I'll show you this quick analysis tool that will help you create really quick things like, well, pivot tables, data tables. You can do some formulas and functions without quite having to know how to do them. You can just do them really quickly. Quick analysis. Then I'm going to introduce you guys to something called linked data types. And I'm just going to leave it there for now. I'll explain it better when we get there. You've really got to see it. If you're visual like me, you'll see it visually. It's really cool. So linked data types. Whoops, and I didn't show you the little buttons. And then I'm going to show you how to create smart drop-down lists. Now, I know, I'll bet you anything. Actually, you guys tell me. Give me a thumbs up or tell me in the chat. Has anybody in here created those drop-down lists in Excel? You know how you can click in a cell and get a drop-down? Yeah? Oh, lots of you. Oh, this is good. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to create the drop down, but I'm also going to be showing you how to create a smart drop down that updates itself. Especially if you want to put your list on a different sheet. I think, again, I'll leave that there for now. Oh, a lot of you guys have. You'll see, I'll build it bit by bit, but you'll see what I mean by a smart drop down. So it kind of takes it a step further than a regular drop down. And then at the very end, I'll show you actually one of my favorite tips to move columns and rows around without having to do the cut and paste kind of thing to move a column or to move a row. They've now come up with a shortcut to do it. And I use this all the time. So I'll finish with that one, the moving stuff around, which is that, moving columns and rows. Okay. So let's jump into it. I'm going to start with the images and the pivot table. So I'm going to share my Excel screen. Okay, I'm just going to put you over here. Actually, let me just bear with me because I'm going to bring up my chat screen so I can see, just in case you guys put a chat in. I want to have that available. Okay, guys. So the Excel workbook that I'm going to work in, that I'm going to show you these things in, is our Great Canadian Training cover band Excel spreadsheet. So we have things like, we have a tour schedule. So Great Canadian Training, we have several members of Great Canadian Training who play instruments. So we decided to put together a cover band. So we track our tour schedule, we track our merchandise sales, we do have merch inventory, all the products we sell. Each product has a category, like some are clothing, some are accessories, some are stationery. And then we also have a mailing list for our Great Canadian Training audience. Okay, so I'm going to use this workbook to show you the different features. And I'm going to start with inserting images. So I'm here on my merch category sheet. So these are all the categories. I've already inserted the pictures into the cells, except for the stationary picture. So I'll use the stationary picture to actually insert it. Now, before I do that, I want to show you guys something. I'm going to take you over to this tab here called Merch Inventory. And you'll notice, I know it's kind of small, but you'll notice that these are all of our products. So like I said, we have a whole bunch of clothing products. We have a whole bunch of accessory products. I have created something called an XLOOKUP. How many of you guys know XLOOKUP? You ever used XLOOKUP or VLOOKUP? It's very similar to VLOOKUP. Anybody know what I'm talking about? XLOOKUP, VLOOKUP. Yeah, you haven't used it. Oh, okay. I'm getting a couple of people. Yes. Oh, yes. VLOOKUP. Okay. XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP is like VLOOKUP on steroids. It's the new and improved VLOOKUP. Okay. I'll just explain this quickly without getting into detail of this is how you use XLOOKUP. I just want to give you an idea of what's happening here because you're going to see something after I insert the image. The way I inserted these images, like guys, you could imagine if I inserted these images myself one by one by going to insert image, this would have taken me forever to do, but I didn't do that. If you look in the formula bar here for this cell here, there is a function in here. And what this function is doing is it's checking to see what the category is here in B4. It's clothing. It then is told to go over here to the merch category, look up clothing in this column. There it is. Move over to where the picture is, find the picture, and then go back here and insert the picture. And it does this all the way down. Clothing, it goes over, finds the picture, inserts it. Then when we get to accessories, it found accessories on the other sheet and it inserted the picture. The problem is for stationery, we have no pictures because over here on my merch category, I didn't put a picture in for stationery yet. So let me insert the picture here. Now you do it like you normally insert pictures, like we've been doing all along. We go up to insert and then the button that says pictures. But now, this is newer, guys. Now you get a choice. Do you want to place it over the cells, which is the way we used to insert pictures? It would be a picture that just floated on your spreadsheet that you could just drag around your spreadsheet. It was not in a cell. But now you have the place in cell option. So I'm going to choose place in cell, and the picture is on my computer. Okay, so hold on, this little pop-up is covering. So I'm going to choose to insert the picture from this device, my computer. So this device, and here's my notebook. So I'll double click, and it actually put it directly into cell B4. It's like data in B4. The thing that I wanted to show you though is if you chose to put it in the cell and then you changed your mind, you thought, no, I want it as a floating picture, you will get this little sort of icon here that allows you to change your mind. So if I click this little icon, it pops out and it's a floating image. If it's a floating image, you can change it back to inserting it in the cell. So I'll click this little button here again, and then it inserts it back in the cell. So you can change your mind. Is there a file format or size? I don't think that there's a size limitation, Heather. File formats, they're a lot of your standard formats. So if I go to if I go to insert pictures, I'll just do place and cell this device. You can see that there are a lot of different pictures that you can insert. So you can insert things like PNGs, JPEGs, bitmaps, like all your standard kind of pictures. You shouldn't have a problem. Most standard pictures you can insert. You know what, Heather? I'm going to Google that for sure to see if there is a restriction for a certain picture type now that you can place it inside a cell, because I don't want to give you wrong information. So I will search that and I'll let you know for sure. Okay. I haven't had any problems though. I insert everything under the sun. But guys, look at this. Now that I put the picture in the cell, I'm going to go back to the merch inventory tab. And all of a sudden, the pictures are there because it was able to do the XLOOKUP, find the picture and put it in. Okay, so it treats it like data, and then I can use XLOOKUP to look it up. Now, let's say I wanted to create a pivot table out of this data. So I'm not doing a whole lesson on pivot tables. If you guys are interested in pivot tables, we introduced pivot tables to you in Excel Level 3. We also have like a half-day pivot table training course if you really want to get into pivot tables. But I am going to create a pivot table here. I'll just explain to you in case you haven't done a pivot table. A pivot table is a way of summarizing your data. Like it tells a story of your data. So you'll have questions about your data. Like I'm looking at the merch inventory and I'm thinking, I wonder what the total prices are per category. So what's the total price for clothing? What's the total price for accessory? What's the total, you can sum the price for the category. Those are the kind of answers that a pivot table will give you. So I'm going to click anywhere in my data, and I'm going to go up to insert because we're inserting a pivot table. So insert pivot table. And it's picked up my whole range of data. Always make sure it's picked up your whole range. I have A3 to D28. And I'm going to put it on a new worksheet. I usually put my pivot tables on a new worksheet. So I'll click OK. Now on the left is where the pivot table shows up eventually. On the right is where I do the work to build the pivot table. Like I said, I'm not going to go into great pivot table training. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I want the sum of the prices. So I'm going to put the price field in the values, and that's going to give me a total sum of all the prices. But I really want to see the sum of prices per category. So I'm going to drag the category field into the rows so it groups it by the category. And take a look at this. I'm going to zoom in. So now we get the total sum of prices for accessories, total sum of prices for clothing, type of thing. That's great. That's a typical pivot table. But now, because we can insert pictures into cells and you can treat it like data, I can actually use the images in the pivot table. So you'll notice that I have the category photo column from the other sheet. I could do this. Instead of putting the category in, accessories, clothing, I'll take it out. And instead, I'll put the category photo in. So if you know what your photos are, and these are the prices for each category. Or I could put both. Like I could put the category in with the category photo. But I'm going to do a little bit of massaging of this pivot table because it doesn't look very good. It puts my photos on a different row than the actual category, and I want the category up beside the photos. So what I can do is go up to my pivot table design tab at the top, design, and near the beginning of the design tab, I have a report layout. So I'll click report layout. And there are 3 types of layouts for a pivot table. You have compact form, outline form, and tabular form. Compact form is your typical pivot table, the way it's showing right here, where we have a grouping by category photo with a subgrouping by category. So there's your photo, and the subgrouping by the category name is in a different row, which doesn't look good to me, but that's compact form. If I go to report layout, I can choose outline form. I'll show you what that looks like. It still has the category, the subgrouping on a different row, but it moves it to a different column. Originally, if I put it back to compact, you'll see it's on a different row, but in the same column, column A. If I put it to outline, it moves it over to a different column, but that's still not good enough. I don't like this. I'm going to go up to report layout and show in tabular form. This will bring this up with the shirt. I can make this smaller. The only issue is it also puts subtotals in, and I don't really need the subtotals. So again, I'll go up to that design tab right at the beginning where it says subtotals. I'll tell it not to show subtotals. Now, this is kind of cool. So I have the photo, I have the actual category name that goes with the photo, and the total sum of prices for that category. So lots of things you can do now that you've put a photo inside a cell. You could do the XLOOKUP. You can create a pivot table with it. And I will show you guys an example again of using a photo in a pivot table in a few minutes when I do the linked data. Okay, so that's photo or images. That's using images in pivot tables. Now I'm going to show you this quick analysis tool. And I'm going to do this on the tour schedule tab. So here's our tour schedule. Few more checks. Oh, I love that, Christian. I love that. Okay, so the quick analysis tool, this little quick analysis button will show up whenever you select data. So for example, I'm going to select all the ticket sales totals here. I'll just drag. There's not a lot. I don't think there's a lot. Okay, we're going to do it a different way. I'm going to give you guys a keyboard shortcut. Instead of dragging down till you get to the bottom, you can always click on the first cell that you want to select. And then the keyboard shortcut to select everything to the bottom is Control Shift arrow down. You know, you got your arrows on the right, up, down, left, right. So I do Control Shift down arrow. That will select everything down. Now, at the bottom, I don't know how well you guys can see with the screen sharing with the webinar, but in the bottom right corner is a tiny little button called a quick analysis button. It looks like it has a little orange lightning bolt on it. If I click that, this is going to give me, oh, you can see it? Okay, good. This is going to give me quick ways of creating charts, tables, spark lines, do kind of formatting, formulas. It's really quick ways of doing them. So for example, up at the top here, I'm going to choose this tab here that says totals. And the first 5 total options are for if you selected rows of information, which I didn't do. I selected a column, right? So if I scroll over here to the right, the last 5 options under totals are for something based on a column. And the one I want to show you is the running totals, which I think are cool. It says running. I'm going to click running. So if you don't know what a running total is, I'm just going back up to the top. What it does is it takes the first number, and that's what you get as the first number. That's where you start. Then the second number is the first one plus the second gives you this total. Then here, this is all 3 added up, give you this total. Then the next one is all 4 added up, give you this. And it works its way down like that. And it's giving you a running total as you're going until you get to the very bottom. And it's a really quick way of doing it. Or for example, what I could do is I could select data, like a whole bunch of data like this. I guess I could have done it with a shortcut. Select all this data, go to my little quick analysis tool, and maybe I want to create a chart. Now, what I think is cool about this is when I first did this and I thought I want to create a chart, I don't know how much you guys know about charts, but usually most charts you base on already summarized data, not details of data like you see here, like 133 rows of data. You don't create a chart. I could create a pivot table out of this that says, you know, group it by the country and sum the ticket sales. So I would get US is this, Canada is this. Then I create a chart kind of thing. So I thought, this quick analysis tool, if I tell it to create a chart, that's not going to be a very good chart because I'm going to get, 133 bars on my column chart or columns on my column chart. But watch what it actually does. It's smart enough to realize, nah, you really wouldn't want to create a chart for 133 rows. So watch when I tell it to create a clustered column chart. It actually creates a pivot table for me that groups it by the country. It guesses how I want to create the chart. It groups it by the country, so we only see one occurrence of each country with a total sum of the attendance, and then it creates the chart. But I could change this around. If I know pivot tables, I can change it. Like maybe I don't want the sum of attendance. Maybe I want the sum of the total ticket sales. So what I can do is down in the values box, get rid of the sum of attendance, just drag it into the spreadsheet here. And then I'll put the ticket sales in the values instead. And there's the total sum of ticket sales per country. Or maybe instead of per country, I want it per region. So I can get rid of country and I could put region. Like it's very smart, which I think is cool. But I was doing all that. I got to this point by using that quick analysis tool. I'll just go back to the tour schedule. I'll do one more. Maybe I'll select all of the attendance numbers. Control Shift down arrow. I'll go down to the quick analysis tool and I'll tell it I want to do, how about under formatting, I want to do data bars. That's conditional formatting. And look at the data bars. It'll put the data bars for how big the number is for attendance, a visual. You didn't have to know how to do it. Yes, I like the control. That's what I do. Control, zoom in, zoom out. Yeah, I love that. So that's the quick analysis tool, but you have to select information first to get that quick analysis tool to pop up. Okay, now I want to show you guys data types. I'm going to do this on, I'm going to do this with the tour schedule here again. Yeah, I'll use this tour schedule. So up on the data tab up here, halfway down the data tab, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this. It's been there for a while. It says data types and you have stock, currencies, geography. I don't know how many of you guys looked at that wondering what it is, not knowing what it is, and then just skipped it. Just forget about it. I'm going to show you what it is, and it's kind of neat. I have a bunch of countries here on our tour schedule. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all those countries. So I'll do my keyboard shortcut, Control Shift down arrow. And I'm going to go up to the data tab and I'm going to click on the geography button under data types and give it a second. Give it a sec. Okay. Let me just make this column bigger. I'm going to zoom in a bit too. I'll do your control zoom in. So you see it looks kind of like these little pamphlets or books or something beside each country. If you mouse over it, so for example, if I mouse over the one for Canada and click on it, it brings up a card with all the information about Canada. It's reached out online and got the updated, well, I don't know how often they update it, but it is updated and it gives you all the information like what is its flag, what is its capital, who are the leaders, what's the population, what's the area, the currency, the largest city, the official name, the official language, urban population, agricultural, like it's got everything. So you can just keep clicking on these little things to get all your information. But what's even cooler is I can do something like this. I'm going to select all the countries again. I'll just scroll up again. And when I mouse over the first cell here, I get a little pop-up to the right where I can insert any of that information into my spreadsheet. So if I click this little button, it's going to show me all the fields that were on that card that I showed you, the official language, the leaders, whatever. So let's say I wanted to insert the flags of all the countries. That's under the field called images. Just to let you know, I searched for a field called flags and I couldn't find it. I found out it's under image. So I'll scroll down here, image. Now watch what happens when I click image. Look at that. I've got all the flags in my data now. I could go back and click the little button. Maybe I want to insert the official language. I searched for language, couldn't find it. It's official language. So it's under O. Here, official language. There, done. It's actually part of my data now. Now I would want to put headings in like this is the flag, this is the official language. I'll probably put this as the running total. Always put headings in your data. You should always have headings. But I've actually inserted it as part of my data, which means I could do something like create a pivot table now. So I could click anywhere in this list, go up to Insert, Pivot Table. Here we go again. I'll put it on a new sheet. And I could say something like, I want to group it by country. And I want to maybe sum the ticket sales again. So I'll put that in the values. Now, just to let you guys know, you'll notice in the pivot table, it shows those little books again here. These are only to tell you that this information is from another spreadsheet that used the linked data types. You can't actually click on the book here to get the information from the pivot table. You have to go back to the source, the sheet that the pivot table, like the tour schedule sheet. You can click on the books there and get the information, but it's just telling you that this is based on a linked data type. But now I can do things like I said, I could put the flags in maybe instead of the country and get rid of the country. Use the flags instead. Or maybe instead of the flags, I want to sum the ticket sales based on the official languages. It's in my data now. So that's called linked data types. That's been around for a while. Just a lot of people just didn't know how to use it. Okay. Now the smart drop-down lists. Yeah, it is, Aylin. It is very cool. Okay. I have a mailing list. I'm going to do this with the mailing list. So I asked you guys at the beginning if any of you have created those drop downs. I got a lot of people that said yes, but I'm going to walk you through creating a drop down. Then I'm going to build on it. And then I'm going to build on it a little bit more until it turns into a smart drop down. Okay. So for example, I have a country column here. I want to be able to fill in, like so far, the countries that we visit are just Canada and the US. So all the provinces and states here, it's just all Canada and the US. So I'm either typing Canada or I'm typing the US. I'd rather have a little drop down because other people fill in my spreadsheet and sometimes they get it wrong and they'll put Europe in there because right now, the way it is, they could type anything they want. I don't want that. I want to restrict them to a drop down Canada, USA. Okay. So typically what I do, I don't know if you guys do this, but typically what I do is I create my list somewhere. And then when I create my drop down, I base it on the list that I've already created somewhere. So what I'm going to do first is create a list that just has Canada, USA. I'm going to do it on the same sheet that I'm creating the drop down. Now, typically I don't do it. Typically I put it on another sheet and we'll get there eventually. But right now, I'm just going to go over here somewhere on the right, and I'm going to I'll put a heading like countries. Maybe I'll make it bold so it's obviously a title. And then the entries that I'm going to want for my drop down are Canada and USA. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to column E. I'm going to select all the cells that I want to create drop downs in. So I'll do my control. Oh, I don't know. This might go all the way down further. I'm just going to select them like this. So these are all the cells that I want to create drop downs in based on this list right here. The way you do it is you use something called data validation. So you go up to your data or data tab, however you guys say it, data. And about 3/4 of the way down, there is a data validation button. Now, I've got to warn you guys, if you're on smaller monitors, like I'm on a really wide monitor, but if you're on a smaller monitor, they shrink down the data tools. So it might look like this. Your data tools might look like this, where the only one that actually has text is the text to columns, and then all your other buttons look like this. If you're ever looking for the data validation button, it's this button that has a little green check mark and a red circle. But my nice wide monitor, it actually says data validation. So I'm going to click the data validation button. And where it says allow any value, it just means that all these cells that I selected, and you can type anything in it. That's typical, right? You could type anything in a cell. Well, no, I'm going to restrict them to a list. So where it says any value, I'm going to click and I'm going to say, nope, I'm restricting them to a list. And then I'm going to put my cursor where it says source. It wants to know the source for the drop-down list. What are the entries that I want in the drop-down list? So I'm going to go over to my little list I created here, and I'm going to drag over Canada and USA. Those are the entries that I want as the drop-downs. I'll click OK. Now, I'll zoom in a bit here. Now, in all these cells, I have drop-downs where I can choose Canada, Canada, USA. Okay, it works. And that's typically what you're taught in an Excel course. Now, one of the problems, the way I did it, is that if I go over to my list and add another entry to the list, like let's say we start doing shows in Europe, well, that would be fun. So I've added another entry. If I go back here to the drop downs, it's not there. It means every time I add an entry, I'm going to have to select all my cells again, go back to data validation and drag over, including Europe. Like I have to update my data validation, which is really a pain if you're always adding to your list. Okay. So let me try this again. I'm going to do it. Well, actually, I don't have to do it again. What I'm going to do is, how many of you guys have heard of data tables? Has anybody heard of a data table, turning a list into a data table? Or you took Excel level 2 and we taught you data tables? Oh, you have, Karen? Not many? Okay. Oh, a couple. They're coming in. Okay. There is a feature in Excel called data tables where you can take any list, turn it into something called a data table. It still looks like a list. It just adds color to your list. But the benefit of data tables is whenever you create things based on a data table, like if you create a drop-down list based on a data table, if you create a chart based on a data table or a pivot table based on a data table, whenever you add extra entries, those features just update themselves automatically. So if I had created a chart based on a data table and I add extra rows, they would automatically go in my chart. That's one of the big benefits of data tables. So if I go over to this little countries list I created and I turn it into a data table, whenever I add more entries, it will automatically update my dropdowns. I'll show you. I'm going to click in this little list over here, and I'm going to give you a keyboard shortcut. Now, I could do this because everybody asks me, I give them the keyboard shortcut, but they want to know where it is on the ribbon. If you want to know where it is on the ribbon, you go to your Home tab, and about halfway down, there's a button that says Format as Table. I could do it this way. The keyboard shortcut. So I click in my list. It's just Control T. T for table. So I'm going to do Control T. And yes, my table has headers. Remember, I typed that heading countries. Click OK. It's now a data table. And by the way, guys, I could remove the color. I know that it adds color to your list. If you don't like the color, you can always go up to your table design tab and you can always remove the color. And okay, right now, I don't care if it has color. Now it's a data table. If I go to the drop down, well, actually, if I add another entry like Africa. Okay, I'm going to have to recreate these drop downs. Hold on one second. Let me just select them all. It doesn't like that I turned it into a data table after the fact. So what I'm going to do, this is actually good because I can show you how to clear your data validation and start again. You can just select all the cells that have your drop down. You can go back to your data tab, back to your data validation, and clear all. And then I can start fresh. So I still have these cells. I'll just click OK. I still have these cells here, but they don't have drop downs. So let me select them again, and let's create our data, our drop downs again. So data validation, it's a list. The source for the list, again, now it's all these entries. Click OK. So it's now showing all those entries here, but let's add another. I'll do Asia. Enter. Now watch. If I come over here, it's there automatically. So every time I add to the bottom of this data table, it will automatically make sure that my drop downs are populated. Okay. So the data tables are very helpful. Now I'm going to take this a step further because a lot of people Control T is also under insert table. Yeah, it is. Actually, you know what, Christian? That reminds me, if anybody's in French Excel, like if your buttons are French in Excel, it's Control L. Control T won't work. It has to be Control L. If it's English Excel, you can use either one, Control T or Control L. But in French Excel, it has to be Control L. Okay. So I don't know about you guys that said you do you create these drop downs. I don't usually put my lists on the same sheet that my drop downs are. I like to have them on a separate sheet, and I'm going to show you something. I'm going to take this. Actually, I'll start fresh. I'll do it fresh. Okay. I'm going to clear the data validation again. So I'll select the cells that have the drop downs. I'll go back up to data validation, clear all. Okay. Now the drop downs are gone. I'll even just delete this column. I don't care about this anymore. Let's put my list on another sheet. So I'll start a new sheet. I usually call my sheet tabs lists, and then I have all the lists that I have for my drop downs. So I'll create my countries list, and I'll put Canada, USA, and I will turn it into a data table because we just saw that it's so good because if you add an extra entry, it's going to update your drop downs. So let me turn this into a data table. Control T. Great. Let's create the drop downs. So I'll go back to my mailing list. I'll select my cells. I'll go back up to my data tab, data validation. I'm going to restrict them to a list. The source for the list is on the lists sheet, and it's these entries here. So the only difference is I had to flip sheets, right? I'll click OK. So great. It creates my drop downs. Now watch this. If I add another country, so I'll go back to my lists tab. I'm going to add Asia. Press enter. It's part of the data table, which I just showed you a minute ago. That should update my drop down. I showed you it did, right? Let me go check my drop downs. So if you put your list on another sheet, even if it's a data table, it doesn't update your drop downs. This is what I'm going to show you. You have to make one extra step. You have to do one extra step to get this to work. I'm going to show you the trick. I'm going to go back to my lists tab. I'm going to create something called a named range. All a named range is selecting a range of cells, whatever range of cells you want to select, and giving that range of cells a name. That's what a named range is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these entries here, Canada, USA, Asia, and the easiest way to create a named range, I'm going to call the named range countries. The easiest way to create a named range is up on your formula bar, you know, above your A, B, C, D, there's a formula bar. Right at the beginning of the formula bar, there's a white box here. This white box here is called a name box. I'm going to click right inside the name box, and then I'm going to type the name that I want to give this range of cells. It makes sense. These are my countries, so it makes sense to call them countries. So I'll type countries and then press enter. Guys, if you don't press enter, you don't get your named range. You have to press enter. So I'll press enter. Now, we have a named range for these cells, A2 to A4. It's called countries. I'm going to go back to my mailing list. I'm going to clear the drop downs. So I'm going to start fresh again with my drop downs. Data validation, clear all. Okay. Now I'm going to create the drop downs. You'll see what I do. Data validation. Again, we're restricting them to a list. The source, I mean, you could, I guess, switch over and drag over the cells. I think it might work now. But what I do is I type equals the named range, whatever you called the named range. I called it countries. That's it. The source is equals whatever's in the country's named range. Click OK. I have drop downs. And now if I go over to the lists tab and I add another entry, we're going to play in Antarctica. When I go back to my mailing list, there it is. So moral of the story, I would turn my lists into data tables. That's going to help you. And if you want to put your data table on a separate sheet, your list, create a named range, and then your list will equal the named range. That's a smart drop down. Now you never have to worry about updating your data validation. You can just keep adding entries to your list and it will automatically update here and save you so much time. Oh, like moving them around? Yeah, I'm just about to show you. It's really fast. Moving them, you're going to like this, Christine. Okay, so let's take a look at that because I've wanted to do this so many times. Let's say, well, is this a good sheet? Maybe I'll do it on a different, I don't know. I'll do it on this sheet. Maybe I want the product name column before the category column. And you know what it's like selecting, cutting, pasting, inserting, whatever. The shortcut is this. Select the column. Hold your shift key. So keep holding down your shift key. You're not going to let go of your shift key in all of this. It's going to be the last thing you let go. So I'm holding shift and I'm going to put my cursor on the border of the selected cell. See, when I put my cursor on the border, it's a four-headed arrow. I'm going to now drag this with my mouse. Ready? I'm dragging it. You see this green bar that moves around? Like you can put it anywhere, wherever you want to move it, as long as you're holding shift. I'm going to move it before category, let go of my mouse, done. I'll move the prices before the products. Shift, drag. I can do rows too. I could select row 7, hold the shift, put my cursor on the border somewhere, and I can drag this row wherever I want to drag it and drop it. It doesn't overwrite anything. It inserts it in the middle. Okay, Lynn, take care. So it's shift, drag and drop, and you'll never have to cut and paste. It will just insert it. I'll put category before product. Shift, drag, done. Some pretty cool shortcuts and tips and tricks, I think. Yeah. Okay, so guys, Joy's going to take over for just a couple of minutes, and you guys can pop questions into the chat, and I will get to the questions. So if there are any questions, just pop them into the chat, and I'll get to them. So we'll go back to me in a couple of minutes.
Any questions or comments, please pop them in the chat. Christine, I just want to say first, just before I move on, thank you so much. I love even the super simple tips like press enter, because we've all done that before. I'm sure we can all admit that. And I'd like control shift and down arrow. And I love, Christine, when you teach, I had a question for you and you answered it. And you answered Christine's question too at the same time. I love it. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, perfect. So if you want more tips and tricks, everyone can see our website. If you go to our courses menu and go down to Excel, perfect. We actually have 19 different Excel courses. And so some of the things Christine talked about in reference, like XLOOKUP is in Excel level 2, pivot tables is covered in Excel level 3. There's a course just on pivot tables, so you go more advanced into pivot tables. If you want tips and tricks, and also I forgot to mention, we did do a tips and tricks webinar, part 1. And in the follow-up email, Susan will share the link to that one if you want to watch the replay of that one. But if you want for training more Excel tips and tricks, we have Excel tips, tricks, and time savers level 1, level 2. You can also take it as a 2-day complete course. And then we have lots of other things like getting deeper into charts and graphs once you get out of like the essentials or the basics, dashboards, all kinds of stuff. So I just wanted to share with you, we actually have 2 new Excel courses this year. One is Excel Data Mastery, Clean, Analyze, Visualize. This is a great course if you kind of want to now move into and get into data analysis. And we use the PRISM model in this course: prepare, relate, interpret, summarize, maintain. And in this course, we're focusing on Excel and the tools in Excel like Power Pivot and Power Query, but you can take that PRISM model that you learn in this course and apply it to things like Power BI or other software that you're going to use later on. And then the other new course is a quick start to Excel VBA and AI. This is a wonderful course too because we do an intro to macros in Excel level 3. And unfortunately with Microsoft, you can't just edit a macro. You have to get into the Visual Basic editor. You get into like VBA code. And so then normally the next step is Excel VBA, but a lot of people don't want to get into coding and developing and stuff. So this course is that middle point where you learn the next steps on how to edit your macros and automate more things, but you also learn to do it with AI tools. And then just the other thing I want to mention, my mouse, there we go. For our clients that want to keep up with all the new releases that Microsoft does, we have upskilling for Word, Excel, Outlook. We have a brand new upskilling for Teams coming out. That's a really big one. But we also have upskilling for Excel. So to keep up with the updates that Microsoft is continuously adding into your 365 license, that is relevant to your job and what you're doing. And then I also just wanted to mention a lot of our Excel courses are also available in French. So just before we pass things back over to Christine for questions, I just want to mention on our free resources menu, we release free resources on a regular basis. Check back often. We have a free download for Excel, VBA, and AI handout coming out at the end of this month. But I also want to remind you, if you haven't already, if you are interested in other topics coming up for our free webinar series, in October, we're going to talk about SharePoint and how it integrates with Office 365. This stuff is all free. November, we're going to talk about AI at work. So the practical applications of AI with the everyday tasks you're doing at work. And then even later on in the year, we have upskilling with Teams, we have business writing, and we even get into file management, a little bit of a review there, but also a really common question is, what is the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint? And we will cover that in that webinar. Okay, let's jump into, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Christine. Let's jump into our questions.
Okay, I was just looking back at them. I just saw Christian's comments. I will rewatch the video. Or no, sorry. You said that you're going to showcase some of these tips and tricks at your next meeting, which is kind of neat. That's a good
awesome.
idea.
Yep.
Yeah. So Tanya was saying at one point I mentioned that I couldn't use the Control-Shift down arrow and I had to drag over it. Kind of had to drag over it. There is another shortcut. And what are the times I can't use it? You know what it is? If you have data in the column, the Control-Shift arrow down means jump to the very last piece of data. So if I do Control-Shift arrow down on the postal codes, it will jump down here because there's data. So if I'm in an empty column, there is no data. So if I do Control-Shift arrow down, watch where I end up. A million rows down. So I can't use Control-Shift arrow down. Now, what I could have done instead of drag down, I could click in the first cell, use I like using that scroll wheel on my mouse to go to the bottom. And before I click on the last cell, I can hold the shift. So it's shift click. So click the first cell, scroll down, click the last cell. I find that faster than dragging it down. So that is a tip. But yeah, if it's a blank column, you can't do that Control-Shift down arrow. So I was kind of stuck there. And then I
I
saw,
have a
okay,
question from Vivian. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
yeah, that's what I was looking at. So you do your data validation on a separate sheet, same as me, but you don't create it as a table as long as you copy a new value within the existing table. Yeah. So I think what you're saying is, so if you had to add a new value and it wasn't a data table, as long as you insert it somewhere in the middle of the list, it works. And yeah, it does work if you insert in the middle, which is fine, which is fine. It's not a wrong way to do it. But if you have a whole bunch of people that, like, suppose you've created this spreadsheet and you have these Excel users that are using your spreadsheet and filling in the mailing list here, and they don't know Excel very well, and they realize they have to add another country. They might not know Excel well enough that they know they can go to the lists and insert something in the middle, and they'll try to insert at the bottom here, and it's not working for them. So if you want to make it bulletproof kind of thing, if you turn it into a table and do it the way I showed you, they can either insert in the middle, they can insert at the bottom. No matter what they do, it will always update it. But the way you're doing it, though, is not incorrect. I mean, if that's working for you, go for it. You don't have to do it this way. Definitely.
So do you think in Excel there's usually like 2 to 3 ways to do
Yeah.
almost anything?
Yeah, there is. And sometimes, like, the 2 or 3 ways that you do it will always give you exactly the same end result. But sometimes the 2 or 3 ways of doing it won't quite be exactly the same end result. So again, like Vivian, if you have other people that are going to update the list, they may not know how to insert, and it won't work when they do it on the bottom. But if that's not what's happening, keep doing it the way you're doing it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I actually have a
Um,
question. Oh, sorry, Christine. Go ahead.
I was just looking to see if there was, and if you have multiple lists on the data sheet, you have to move down. Oh, you're just talking about, okay. I'm just checking to see if I'm missing another. I don't think I'm missing another one. You got a question?
I do have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a way to lock all the formulas on my spreadsheet so people can't change them without locking the rest of the cells on the sheet?
Oh, protecting your cells. Um, yeah. What can I can do that maybe March sale. Okay, you know what I'm going to do, guys, to show you this? I'm going to create a formula over here, just a fun formula. I don't have any formulas on this sheet. I'll just do something like equals the sale times, we're going to increase them by 10%. How about that? 1.1. And I'll just fill it down. Okay, about increased sales. Okay, so on my spreadsheet, I have a bunch of things that are typed in, but then I also have formulas. And yes, there is a way to protect your spreadsheet. Like, I could go up to review and I could click protect sheet. The problem is protect sheet is going to protect all the cells on your spreadsheet. Your cells
Hmm.
are set to lock if you protect the sheet, everyone. That's not what I want to do. I want to protect only the formulas and not the rest of the cells. So if it's straightforward and your formulas are all in one column and then the rest of the information that you don't want protected is all together so you can select it, then it's a straightforward way to do it. I have to go in and I have to unlock what I don't want to lock. So everything but the formulas. I can just select everything but the formulas. Oh, it shows a spreadsheet that's big. And the way you tell it not to lock these is you do it in the format cells dialog box. So I'll give you guys a keyboard shortcut again. Control 1. Control 1 will bring up your format cells. And on the protection tab, you can remove the lock. I don't want these to lock. Okay. But the formulas are still set to lock because you didn't include those. So now I can go up and protect the sheet, click OK. I can change anything I want here, but I cannot overwrite a formula. Now I'm going to unprotect it and I'll show you one more trick. If your formulas are all over the place, like all over the place, and you want to lock your formulas and not everything else, it's very hard to select what's not a formula. The trick is this. You can go up to home, down to find and select. And what you're going to do is you're going to find constants. Constants will select everything that's not a formula. So even if it's scattered all over the place, you'll get your constants. Then you can do your control 1 and then remove the lock, click OK, and then protect your sheet, and it will only protect your formulas. So there are
awesome.
little sort of tips and
Yeah.
tricks to do that. Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay. Thanks, Christine. And before we go, were there any other questions? Guys,
Yeah, there
thank
was
you
one they
so.
wanted
Oh,
to
sorry.
know.
Yep.
Sorry, I was going to say, I happened to notice somebody asked, how can I watch the recording of this session?
Oh, yeah. So
Oh,
Susan
Susan
will,
answered it. Susan
yeah.
answered it.
And I'll just answer it anyways in case you didn't see the note. Susan will send a follow-up email with a link to the replay, and then you can also access it from our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And in the follow-up email, we'll also have a survey. Tell us how we did. Tell us if there's any topics in the future you'd love for us to cover in our webinars. And of course, thank you to Susan and Christine.
No, thank you, Joy, our host and presenter, Christine. It's been an amazing webinar. I learned a few things today, too. Thanks so much. And thanks to everybody for joining us. We're going to close the room now, but you will, as mentioned, receive the webinar in a practical handout with 2 business days. And I'll also include any links of mention and things that Christine was going to look up. So please, until next time, nurture learning and have a fabulous afternoon. Bye for now.